looking for volunteers on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that week. That's April 20th, 21st, and 22nd. For these days, we will be moving a lot of compost and soil and filling those frames that were built on Monday. And then our plantings will hopefully be Friday and Saturday. So if you are interested in helping to actually plant these gardens, plant the seeds and the seedlings alongside Maren, our master gardener, please reach out. We are looking for volunteers for all of those opportunities. Oh, and I will send my email address in here. If you'd like to reach out to me, PGH, sorry, I need to give the other one, as well as a link if you would prefer to just click on a link and tell me when your availability allows. And if you have a bucket or a wheelbarrow or whatever that you would like to help contribute, this link will take you there. That's it.
All right, thanks, Rhea. Now I'm going to start sharing my screen so that, there's so much share. Okay, so that Kathleen can talk about our Clean Choice Energy fundraiser.
Thanks so much. I will pull my screen up right now. Give me one moment. Are you guys seeing the presentation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, great. Present is the button I need. Okay. Excellent. So I'm Kathleen Wojtowicz, everybody, Polish. So I know it's a little bit of a doozy. I am from Northeast PA. So I'm from Wilkes-Barre, PA, a little bit northeast of you guys, of course. And I'm here today to talk to you guys about choosing clean electricity. Before I get into that, I just wanted to kind of make note of my background. And this is it's called the warming stripes. And this is the way that Pennsylvania's average temperatures have changed over the years. So I think this is really a great visual example of how our burning of fossil fuels has really contributed to the increase of temperatures in the world. And it's really stark when you look at how many red lines, right, are towards the end. And there's not a lot we can do about what's happening with climate change as individuals. And unfortunately, a lot of it is up to our governments to make that change. But there are a few things that are within our control. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. So before we get started, if you pay a utility bill, raise your hand. Let me know. Anybody pay a utility bill? Great. And how many of you probably just like flip on your switch and never think about it beyond that? Yeah, same. I started working for Clean Choice Energy about 3 years ago. And it really wasn't until then that I understood the impact that our energy consumption is having on climate change. And so what I want to share is that our founder founded this company in 2012 to mitigate climate change. That is our goal. He grew up near y'all outside of Pittsburgh, and his family was living in the suburbs where a lot of the pollution from the coal and the steel plants was getting flown into the atmosphere. And they would have to wake up in the morning and brush their porch off from the black soot. They called it black sugar at the time. This was pre-EPA regulations. And so what happened was he wanted to install solar panels when he became an adult, wanted to install solar panels on his rooftop so he didn't have to participate in this polluting industry that affected his family so deeply. And found the process was challenging. So he founded Clean Choice Energy to provide this opportunity to both homeowners and renters to choose clean electricity. So we're trying to transform our energy grid, and it's going to take all of us to do this. We're only one piece of the puzzle. This is something that you have the power to do. So we're really excited to have partnered with Protect PT. What we're asking is that you get enrolled in clean energy through your utility bill. So right now, if you're paying that bill, you're paying your utility company to both purchase your energy, and to deliver your energy. they are always going to deliver your energy, your utility company. They own the wires and the poles, but they're also purchasing your energy. And this is coming from most natural gas sources as well as nuclear energy. With Clean Choice, you're paying for 100% solar power from the region. So our mission is to really grow the industry in the region. So your energy will be sourced from 150 miles of your home, wind and solar power. And this means you are no longer purchasing polluting fossil fuels. And that's really what we need to do, is we need to divest from those fossil fuels and invest in the renewable energy sector. And at Clean Choice, we focus on wind and solar power. There are no sign-up or cancellation fees for this. You'll have a 12-month fixed rate, which is about 2 cents more than what you're paying right now. So you may look at a slight increase in your utility bill, and that's something that I'd be happy to talk to you individually about. Tends to be really negligible increase. It's something that I've been doing in my apartment since I started with the company. And it's really just such an easy step that you can make. So for each person who does choose clean electricity rather than continuing to pay for fossil fuels, we will be donating $50 to Reimagine Turtle Creek, and the money is going to be used to help grow and build these family gardens, which is really exciting for so many reasons. Gardens are important, you know, native species, butterflies, bees, etc. I'm sure you guys know. I can go on. So we're really excited to kind of marry these two missions and say, you know, let's choose clean energy and let's do something to give back to the community. And that's really all I've got. I'm going to drop my email and the enrollment link in the chat. Their enrollment takes 1 minute. It's very quick. You simply put your zip code in, name, address, and email, your utility account number, and you're totally done. You don't have to do anything else. It's truly the easiest thing that you can do. And I'm going to drop those links in there. But if you all have questions, I would love to hear from you. I think sometimes this is a new concept for people. So I'd love to open up the floor if anybody has anything else to say. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity and for, you know, collaborating with our efforts. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to seeing how this works out.
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. And
yeah, thank you so much. And like I said, if anyone wants to reach out, I just dropped my email. You want to make sure that you use that special link for Protect PT, because that's how the donation will be made. And I don't think I mentioned either, we are actually going to be donating an additional $500 for every 10 enrollments that we get. So the more people we can enroll, the more money we can raise, which is really exciting. Questions? Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Is the, you said within 150 miles of wherever we are, which is great. Does that mean that this would be coming from those wind farms we see in Somerset or somewhere or other east?
Yeah, that's possible.
Or is it more from Ohio?
It depends. We have many different wind and solar farms that we purchase our energy from. And so it would depend. I would have to take a look at our providers and see if that's the case. But we are purchasing energy from Pennsylvania as well as Ohio.
Can you say anything about how this compares to the community energy plans?
Absolutely. So
rates?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in Pennsylvania, the energy market is deregulated, and that means that third-party energy providers can come in and compete for your business, which is excellent. What a lot of those energy providers are doing is purchasing bulk energy, so maybe bulk fracked gas. So in that way, they're able to lower the cost of your utility bills, and that's because they're just purchasing polluting fossil fueled energy in bulk. And so that's great if you really need your utility bill to be lowered, but that's certainly not accomplishing any of our climate missions and our emissions reduction.
No, community energy is, I mean, at least the plan that I have is called PA Wind and Solar.
Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to compare it to. Although if Jumping Ship provides funding for my gardening program, that's not to be sneezed at either.
Yeah, great. So I would have to take a look at that specific plan that you're referring to. A lot of times what what some folks do is actually just purchase carbon offsets, right? So they're just purchasing
PA wind and solar is pretty specifically PA wind and solar. And while I don't think there's a whole lot of solar on this side of the state, it's probably mostly wind.
Yes.
That is within Pennsylvania. And so I'm wondering how you work that 150 miles. Is that a hard 150-mile zone? Because I'm also all about the bioregion.
Yes,
as
unfortunately,
much as-
I'm not 100% sure on exactly where those wind and solar farms are located. So that's an excellent question. Like I said, we always try to source within that 150 miles of where your grid is. Like I said,
Of where the grid is or where the customer is?
where the customer is.
Okay.
In terms of what the difference between these competitors may be, and again, unfortunately, I don't have I'm not exactly sure what provider you're with and what they do. Our mission is to mitigate climate change. And so that's really what sets us apart, in my opinion. So there are other energy providers who are offering a clean wind and solar product, which is excellent. I want everyone to offer that, but they're also owned by larger oil conglomerates, right? Or these other things. So
Community Energy is so. Community Energy's website is accessed when you say newwindenergy.com. It's intended to be renewable. So it might be useful to you for future presentations to get a handle on what they're doing. And the company is Community Energy. The website is New Wind Energy. And again, I'm not saying that I might not make this change in order to, I'd have to see where your 150 miles business is, but it is a very generous funding opportunity for a program that I'm volunteering for. So I'm definitely encouraging folks to do this, especially if you don't have already renewable energy in your utility provision.
Okay, great.
So.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thanks so much for presenting and giving us this information. And we're gonna move on. But like Kathleen said, you can reach out to her and you can use the link that she dropped in the chat. I'll also send a follow-up email tomorrow with all of this information. So Tiffany Taulton, who I see on camera now, is the Director of Community Initiatives at the Hazelwood Initiative, a community development corporation located in Hazelwood. In her role, Tiffany oversees community engagement, communications, and grants with an eye towards strengthening equity and inclusivity in the development process. Prior to working at the Hazelwood Initiative, Tiffany evaluated national clean energy strategies for the Environmental Defense Fund in New York, worked for the Pittsburgh Department of City Planning, where she authored the food chapter of the Pittsburgh Climate Action Plan 2.0, and spent 4 years working for the Department of Public Information at the United Nations headquarters in New York City. She also has 4 years of healthcare experience and working in hospitals as a Spanish interpreter, doula, and medical biller. Thank you so much for being here, Tiffany. And that's not even all of her very impressive resume. So yeah, if you want to share your screen and share with us what it is that you do, that would be great.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I have two computers on, one so you can see me, but the mouse isn't working for some reason. And then I have my phone so you can hear me because the microphone with the computer with the PowerPoint doesn't work. So this is an interesting day. But thanks for having me. I'm happy to share a bit about what Hazelwood Initiative does and what we're really focusing, or at least what I'm focusing on right now as part of our general agenda. So again, my name is Tiffany Taulton. I'm the Director of Community Initiatives for Hazelwood Initiative. And our mission is building a stronger Hazelwood through inclusive community development. So just to give you an idea of what my plan is in this brief presentation, just to give you a real summary of me, which she already did, so I'll skip through that mostly. Talk about the history of Hazelwood, the present challenges, some of the work that we do, and then our sustainability efforts. So I think she gave a pretty good intro. So there's my slide. You know what I do. And then getting into the history of Hazelwood, just so you can see, if you're not familiar with Hazelwood already, what it used to look like when the old Jones and Laughlin steel mill was there, followed by the LTV steel mill and the coke works, just how polluted the air was, and that it's really a neighborhood that was built on the steel industry. Most of the people there came as European immigrants, some Irish, Scottish, then Eastern Europe. Then you have African American population moving up from the south during the Great Migration for work as well. It's a neighborhood that has flats on the Monongahela River, and then it has a lot of steep hills through the rest of the neighborhood that were connected by the famous Pittsburgh steps, many of them now in disrepair. And so, just the briefest history, it was like much like the rest of the country, inhabited by Native Americans. Europeans settled in the 1700s. You had the industrial activity from the railroads, the steel mills. Steel mill operations began to decline in the 1960s. And that really began the decline of the neighborhood as a whole. The neighborhood used to have about 13,000 residents at the height of the steel mill operations and currently has about 5,000. So it's really lost a lot of its population. And with that loss, you had a lot of vacant lots. There's been a loss of a lot of grocery stores. I mean, there is no grocery store in the neighborhood anymore. The library was closed for a while. The movie theaters are gone. The bowling alley's gone. And so this has been a neighborhood that has been suffering for a long time. Hazelwood Initiative was created about 22 years ago. And it started really as the Hazelwood Neighborhood Maintenance Task Force doing blight removal in 1994. And in 1999, it merged with the Hazelwood Economic Leveraging Partnership. And this was really something that happened after the last fight against the LTV steel plant, when they decided that, enough was enough and that it shouldn't be reopened, and it was shut down. In 2014, Hazelwood Initiative and several other community groups created the Greater Hazelwood Community Collaborative to coordinate larger cleanup efforts and really to begin a visioning process for the economic revitalization of the community. And this was really a response to renewed interest in developing the old steel mill site, which was called El Mono and is now known as Hazelwood Green. And so that process began, it began shortly after the LTV plant was closed for the last time in 1998. In 2002, El Mono LP Limited Partnership was formed by 4 foundations. In 2015, which again, the Greater Hazelwood Community Collaborative was created in 2014. You had Uber bringing its test track in there, and as more and more development came, more interest. You see in 2019, a real burst of energy of construction happening. Mill 19 is basically completed. It's opened as a home for Uber, Advanced Robotics Manufacturing Futures Initiative, Carnegie Mellon University, and Catalyst doing some training there as well. And then we have this revitalization of Second Avenue that Hazelwood Initiative has been focused on, getting the small businesses opened and making sure that they stay there. And then this is just a brief slide about the comprehensive plan for community development that was created by the organizations in the neighborhood. And they have their North Star vision statement, which focuses on diversity of the community, as Hazelwood is a very diverse community. And that's something that people often bring up as one of the things that they really like about the neighborhood. While a lot of Pittsburgh neighborhoods are very segregated, you'll have your white neighborhoods, you'll have your Black neighborhoods, and now we do have more immigrant population coming in. Hazelwood has always been, a sizable Black and white community, and that's something that people want to preserve. And so that's what's evidenced in the North Star vision statement. Greater Hazelwood is a diverse and welcoming community for people of all incomes and backgrounds. Our future is driven by the leadership of community residents, resulting in a community with thriving families and households, affordable, high-quality residential options, family-sustaining career opportunities, successful businesses and business owners, and a fully integrated Hazelwood Green. Our community fosters opportunities to build generational wealth and community health to ensure current and future generations benefit from the neighborhood's growth and prosperity. We build strong partnerships with stakeholders throughout the region while protecting and celebrating the unique landscape, history, culture, and spirit of Greater Hazelwood. And so that's the North Star statement, and Hazelwood Initiative as a community development corporation is really focused on implementing a lot of that, particularly when it comes to investment in property. We are purchasing several properties throughout the neighborhood, both commercial and residential, fixing up old properties and making them affordable home ownership opportunities as well is part of what we do. And so just to give you some idea of what needs to be done on our plate as Hazelwood Initiative, a community development corporation, our goal is to have 100 renters converted to homeowners, help 300 homeowners to build wealth through home repairs that will increase their home equity, create 600 units of low-income affordable rental housing, and build a vibrant business district. So those are the goals of Hazelwood Initiative as a whole. And of course, the challenge of having lost such a large percentage of the population, having 63% of residents living at near or below the poverty level. Our unemployment rate is extremely high in Hazelwood, and we are losing our Black population currently, and we're hoping to stop that from happening by focusing on these affordable rental units and also the affordable housing. But in addition to that, we are more than just focused on the housing. We also have goals in our mission of green space and sustainability and equitable transportation. And so what I just want to give you an idea of is what we do in terms of green space, and then you can ask me any questions. And here are just some images of the neighborhood. If you haven't been to Hazelwood, this is Hazelwood Towers. There are very few apartments in the neighborhood. It's mostly homes, and duplexes, townhomes, or row houses. But there are some senior high rises. And that's one of them. You can see 2nd Avenue in these pictures. So that's the coffee shop that we own. Although unfortunately it's been closed since the pandemic. You have La Gourmandine Bakery next to it. You have the Elizabeth Pharmacy that we helped a bit with their frontage, and Italian Village Pizza. And here's some images of the homes. You also have a recycling center in the middle picture there by the railroad tracks. So there's just some work to be done. In terms of sustainability, we have 3 community gardens that we work with. We bought the former YMCA building, so that's the site of the Hazelwood Community Garden. And we have a garden manager that works part-time with us to take care of that. We also have Everybody's Garden, if any of you know Jim McHugh, on Lytle, around Lytle Street. And then we are working with residents in Glen Hazel to get that garden up and running. And the great thing about gardens is not only do they increase food security in a neighborhood that is food insecure, but they also help with, storm water runoff and beautifying neighborhood and everything, and pollination and all of that. More recently, since I've come on, and I just joined the organization a little over a year ago. I started in the end of October of 2019, so I only had a few months to get to know everybody before everything got shut down for the pandemic. And my role there at Hazelwood Initiative is mostly as a community engagement person, so reaching out to the community, making sure that they know what our programs are, and that they have a way to maintain their living space, that we have affordable rental units, that we are looking to get people into home ownership opportunities. But also I work on grants, which has been important in terms of giving people grants to stay in their homes during the pandemic. We've been having a COVID relief grant that we've given people. And my personal interest is in environmental development and environmental policy. I moved to Pittsburgh after Superstorm Sandy affected New York, and it's just my personal goal to make sure that communities of color, low-income communities, are prepared for climate change, because it has been my experience that that has not been the focus for much of the country. And so when we talk about Hazelwood, with all of its steep hills and this former industrial site, the brownfield that was Hazelwood Green, and the people that are still living with high incidences of asthma and poverty, I really want to make sure that as we preserve housing, we also make this a beautiful place that people just actually want to live. And so last year we began having environmental development meetings. These are meetings that focus on the environmental impact of the many development projects that are being proposed in the neighborhood. So as the neighborhood has, started to gain the interest of the city with the Hazelwood Green site, not only do we have Hazelwood Green being developed, but we also have other areas of the neighborhood that developers are coming in and wanting to do, large numbers of housing and whatnot. And it's just important for us as a community to keep an eye on what all of these projects are doing, because one of the first projects that came up was this idea of Woods Village project, and it would actually be cutting down 2 blocks of trees. And it's just a question of, of course, you have to have development in the neighborhood, but what is the right kind of development? And if we lose 2 blocks there, are we going to lose another 2 blocks somewhere else and then end up with no trees? Or do we want to be more intentional about where we're developing and how we're developing? And so that's really the purpose of the Hazelwood Environmental Development meetings, is to give the community a chance to really point out to us and create a community vision of where should the green space be? What are we trying to protect? What places are important and special to our community, and what areas really pose a danger in terms of increasing urban heat island effect, increasing flooding, or increasing poor air quality, which would make everyone suffer. So that's what we really have these meetings for. We meet on the last Monday of every month, and we have different topics. You can see some of them in the flyers here. One of our early meetings was on air quality. We also had a meeting to talk about, again, what is the vision for the community? Is there a way that we could become perhaps a trail town and really capitalize on the greenery that we do have, which is unusual for a community. When you think about a low-income community, a community of color, a community that used to be an old still town, you think generally those communities just have a lot of concrete and not a lot else. But we are very lucky that we actually have the largest greenway in the city of Pittsburgh. And now the idea is, how can we really capitalize on that to improve the health of our community and improve the economic health as well. And so here you can see some of the, discussion about green space that's happened with the Woods Village concept that's coming. We also have work on the riverfront that people are getting interested in, and then our Hazelwood Greenway, which is really in kind of a bad state right now. The fences are broken, the stairs around are broken. A lot of people really aren't even clear how to use it. So these are just some of the questions that we talk about. Where and how much green space should there be? What are the health benefits of preserving green space? How can green space contribute to economic growth? And if you haven't been, again, here's a map just to give an idea of the green space that is in Hazelwood. So a lot of the homes are closer to the river, and that's the flat area. And you can see Hazelwood Green, and the Uber track is that area that's just kind of an L-shaped, all gray. But then going up the hill, which are very steep, you do have this forested area. And one of the reasons the greenways exist is because those are areas where the city felt, as the city population shrank, that they couldn't really take care of them in terms of having a lot of vacant lots there. They weren't going to make them a public park that needed, city dollars to maintain, but they would just let community groups take care of these greenways. But without funding, it's been hard for community groups to keep up with that. And especially as the years have passed, these greenways were created in the 80s. A lot of the people that were initially excited about them may not be around anymore. And so we have these great green spaces available, but a lot of people aren't using them at this point in time. But there's a lot of opportunity here. And then most recently, when we've been having these meetings, it's come up, well, hey, we've got this green space, and CMU is talking about having this Mon-Oakland connector shuttle from Shenley. Well, what if it was just a path for bicycles and people walking and hiking, that people could really have a green corridor, even a biodiversity corridor to preserve the animal species as we go through climate change, connecting Shenley Park through Hazelwood all the way to Frick Park and along the Duck Hollow, And so that's really become a discussion in some of these meetings. I think initially, you know, some of the developers were thinking, oh, we want to connect to South Side, but as we had the meetings, residents really made it clear that they want to talk more about a connection to Frick Park and Duck Hollow that I guess they, you know, that they used to have when Second Avenue ran all the way through to Braddock before the Glenwood Bridge was built. And so these are the conversations that we're having. But we can't really have a good conversation about what to do with the Greenway if we don't have more community participation in that. And at this point, so much of the community has not been in the Greenway because of the conditions that I mentioned, with the steps being broken and in disrepair, with fences being broken. The entrances to the Greenway all have fences on them and signs that say do not enter, which are actually there for the cars, but a lot of residents don't know that. And with people not going in there so often, the only people that are going in there oftentimes are people that are going that shouldn't be, you know, maybe with dirt bikes and ATVs, or contractors going there to dump construction debris. And then you just have this wild overgrowth of plants. And so it's really important right now to get people in there so they have an opinion, they know what to do with it, they appreciate it, and don't think it's just a dumping ground that should be mowed down and put some houses up because it's just trash. And so what we've been doing, I've been having a hike 2 to 3 times a month since February. And so here are just some pictures. We had a family hike. We partnered with Venture Outdoors. We partnered with Venture Outdoors in the winter as well. We did some snowshoeing. We'll be partnering with Outdoor Afro in May to have a hike. Outdoor Afro is an organization, a national organization that celebrates Black leadership in outdoor recreation and makes it its mission to get more people of color outside, specifically African Americans. And so we're just really trying to get people to feel like the Greenway is their place. It's something that they own and that they can, and that adds value to the community and actually can help the community develop sustainably, not just basing all of the community development on getting, you know, an Amazon or a Walmart in the community, but there are other ways that we can develop in a clean way. And especially now, this has been a hot topic because with COVID, people can't, you know, go out often. They can't, people are scared to take the bus and go somewhere else. And it's not really that convenient to take a bus to go another park from Hazelwood. So having a green space in our community that's easy for people to walk to, get outside, get fresh air, you know, get that green biotherapy from the trees, do the forest bathing thing. When people have stress in their lives, the stress of poverty in general, and the stress of COVID on top of that, it's important to have these green spaces in the community. And we're just really showing people how to use it and getting their opinions on how we can make it better. And now the snow is melted, we're really getting an idea of how much work needs to be done. You can see there's just terrible in overgrowth here of vines. There's a lot of knotweed. There's a lot of, you know, some other vines going in there, poison ivy, a lot of Korean honeysuckle bush everywhere. So we've got a grant from the Trust for Public Land to improve the Greenway. We're acting as a pilot for the city's climate action goals to see what happens when you do give community groups some funding to take care of the Greenway, if that can help the city to reach its climate action goals in terms of, you know, carbon sequestration and tree canopy coverage. And for the Trust for Public Lands, it is their goal to have every community be within a 10-minute walk to a park. We're going to be having a cleanup on April 25th, which is the Sunday, the weekend of Earth Day. So if you want to join us for that, we'll be meeting at 2:30 in the Greenway and picking up a lot of the glass and some trash in there. But this is really just just to give you an idea of all the work that we are trying to do to improve our community on the sustainability side, in addition to the housing side, to bring the health of the community up and to build the pride around, you know, the green things that we can do, both as an outdoor recreation hub, potentially, you know, maybe have some variation of a trail town, having green jobs in forestry and plant care and landscaping, and just enjoying the situation of, you know, having better community health for a community that is suffering from poor health in a lot of ways by taking advantage of this Greenway. And so that's my information. And if you have any questions, let me know. Haven't been checking the chat. No questions?
I thought there was a couple of questions in the chat.
Better signs, no vehicles instead of no entry. Yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah. Who's the part-time garden manager? Matt Peters. If you know Matt Peters, he's also in Heartwood. I think he's in a lot of green groups, so you probably do. Yes, it would be nice to get more development projects in the vacant areas, but as you might imagine from the developer's perspective, it's more costly to buy up single plots one by one rather than taking, you know, a bigger area.
I actually have a question. I went to the Greenway a few weeks ago,
Mm.
and yeah, there was like a lot of older debris. Did you say that it used to be like housing up there, and it was just kind of allowed to grow, or what's the history behind that area?
Yeah, so the Greenway is kind of split. There's a Greenway section that is to the left of Hazelwood Avenue, and there's a Greenway section that's to the right of Hazelwood Avenue. We really focus mostly on the section that's to the right of Hazelwood Avenue because the entrance is on Elizabeth Street. And so that's the main section we focus on. There used to be more housing on the part that's on the left of Hazelwood Avenue where they're talking about putting them on Oakland Connector. So if you go up there, you'll see like there's some, you know, retaining walls and some structures that are falling down. In the section that we're focused on, there was some housing. It was really interesting. One of the hikes that I did, two women came and they actually explained to us that they used to be a Black family farm, the Johnson farm that was located in the Greenway there. And so now I'm really looking at, you know, how can we preserve that history and elevate that history of a Black family farm in Hazelwood in that Greenway space. So there was, I don't think that whole area was covered by housing, but there was some housing in the Greenway previously. A lot of the debris that's there now is simply because of neglect and unscrupulous people depositing construction debris from other areas in the Greenway. So you can see there's some cars in there, some car parts in there, and a lot of concrete and rebar and tires and things like that that have been deposited. No, the part where Kyle Pattison had his farm, that's more on the, that's kind of bordering the Greenway, but it's not in the Greenway, and that would be the part that's to the left of Hazelwood Avenue, closer to the Mont Oakland Connector area. And right now there is a composting initiative on that site with involvement, which is an organization dedicated to creating a type of like community currency. So they have some people in the neighborhood and they do work there. And I think they get like credits to shop at Dillamato's Market and maybe some other places in the neighborhood. Do I interact with the youth program that has jazz? That's Center of Life. So that's a different organization. Has Allegheny Cleanways been helping with debris removal? Not that I'm aware of, but they are on my list of organizations to call tomorrow to see if they want to join us on the Earth Day weekend cleanup. Is Matt doing work with worm compost? I think Matt deals with worms, but I have not talked to him about any large worm composting projects. Wow, I wasn't expecting all the comments to be in in the chat box. Did I miss anybody's question? I mean, you can unmute yourself. That's fine too. I'm sure you're all tired of hearing my voice. Do they still have fracking and sand loading? I am unaware of any fracking or sand loading in Hazelwood. So
With
that
the
is a
trains, it comes in by rail, and it was documented in a series of photographs about fracking that Brian Cohen arranged, a photography exhibit at the Pittsburgh Center for the Arts a couple of years back, and there was at least one picture of Hazelwood and like a rail station where they were like unloading fracking sand or something. Does anybody else recall that exhibit, the art exhibit, the photo exhibit?
I remember the exhibit. I don't remember that particular section of the exhibit. There was a bus tour that went to a trimodal transfer place, like train, barge, and truck. But it wasn't in Hazelwood. It was further down the Ohio, someplace in some other neighborhood. I can't remember what name. So
You're on mute, Heather.
Okay, this was in Hazelwood. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. There are definitely trains running through there, and that's one of the issues with the air quality too, as well as noise from my perspective, and access to the river. We do have, the new bike trail was opened up on Hazelwood Green, and there's, some desire to make there a continuous access along that river. So that is another issue. There's a lot going on in Hazelwood in terms of green activities, between the riverfront development where they want to have kayaking and, more trailage, and then having the greenway space. And then you still have the recycle plant. I don't know about any fracking or train transfers of frack materials. I would say that one of the issues that's come up with the greenway is that when you look on or at least when I've looked on maps of, undermining in the city of Pittsburgh, all of the undermining is more up on, towards the Greenfield, Calvary Cemetery side. But the residents keep telling me that there are mines in Hazelwood. And so I think that's something that still needs to be investigated, because there's definitely a lot of water seepage in many of the hill areas that needs to be dealt with. Like a lot of the Elizabeth Street Trail itself is a river. When it rains, you can see it very clearly. And even on days when it doesn't rain, there is water that's just flowing down. And so there is some interest in doing some testing of that water to see if there's acid mine drainage in it. And I've definitely seen some pictures in the Hazelwood, Growing Up Hazelwood Facebook group of actual mine shafts in different parts of the neighborhood. So the older people remember there being mining, even if it's not on the city's maps. So that's something else to keep in mind with, should we start developing this area, or should we just let it stay wooded and protected from that standpoint? Any other questions, or should we move on?
You're doing a lot. It's great what you're doing. You have a lot of different projects going on.
Thanks. We're really excited to be working with Land Force. It's my hope that I can get an extra grant to get Allegheny Goatscape in there as well. And we have a grant with Tree Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh Foundation to start a Release Hazelwood project as well. So we'll be doing that for the next year and a half.
So it is almost 8 o'clock. We have time for breakout rooms, but I did want to have enough time for Q&A. I think it would be a good use of our time to talk to the new folks who are here. There's a couple of new faces. Also, maybe we could go around and answer the question of what kind of takeaways do you have, and what can we do as Reimagine Turtle Creek, and what we learned from Tiffany's presentation about the Greenway and the Hazelwood Initiative. Does that sound good for folks? With our remaining time.
Hey
Good.
guys, I'm sorry I got on real late there, and I'm John Sonnen up in Douglas, Alaska. But I was thinking I was going to log on to a discussion about Bitcoins and fracking. Is that this one? No.
No.
Yeah, I don't understand the relationship. Bitcoins are not minted, but somebody was going to talk about the relationship between Bitcoins and fracking. And I thought that'd be interesting.
I think that was Halt the Harm Network, different event.
Oh, yeah, it is. You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but thanks for joining us, John. It's always good to see you. Yeah.
I'm sorry you're not so late. I was doing something else until about 3:30, well, half past the hour, more than 45 minutes past the hour. Thanks anyways, though.
Does anyone want to share out any key takeaways or other questions or thoughts, concerns from Tiffany's presentation?
How do you see you're not totally familiar with our group, but how do you see a community visioning group like ours getting involved with your programs, with things you're doing in Hazelwood?
I think right now that there's really, I think it's gaining momentum to have more cooperation between communities. Recently, we've started looking at having more deeper relationships with Squirrel Hill and Greenfield and having joint meetings together. And I think that has been helpful because some of these issues, you know, when we talk about for example, the Mont Oakland connector, you know, that affects more than one community. And it could be very easy for each community to be, you know, pitted against the other to stop the project or start the project for their own reasons. And when we work together and talk about how it affects each of our communities, we can come to a better solution, especially when we're talking about shared watersheds or shared, you know, airspace. It's something that just works better together. When we're talking about in Hazelwood, we want to have, you know, a bio corridor that connects from Shenley through to Frick Park. That's a lot of opportunity for different communities to come together and work towards that goal to make sure that we can have contiguous green space for people to travel through safely, that we can protect the waters that go into all of those spaces and make sure that they're clean, that we're not cutting down one part of the forest and causing flooding for another community. Those are important conversations. I would say, interestingly, I also met with Steel Valley Association, I hope I got the name right, and Friends of the Riverfront. And they were eager to talk with us as well because they have their own projects, but a lot of people are looking at going through Hazelwood to get to their projects. And so one of the suggestions that was made to us was that there isn't enough, you know, the city or the county is looking at other groups and their trails, but they're not really looking as seriously at the potential for Hazelwood. And so maybe to even go to one of the Turtle Creek hearings and talk about, you know, at least bring up the issue that Hazelwood also wants a connection and specifically wants a connection through Duck Hollow to be reopened and made accessible to the public so that, you know, I took the ride with them. And it was just like, you get to the Glenwood Bridge and it's like, I am 5 minutes from my house if I could just cross this area, but the railroad has closed it off and you can't. So it would be really nice if there was a better connection through there and people could just go to the parts of the neighborhood that they want to and that they were used to going to previously and do it easily and safely without a car. because it's definitely a much longer trip if you have to take a bus, or a much more dangerous trip if you're taking a bicycle down the hill with the cars and steep bends that they can't see around and things like that. Did that answer your question? You're on mute.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like, sort of see, I guess, is there a place where we can see, like, the material you covered tonight? Well, that'll be available too. I couldn't see it, so that'll be available to us, I guess. But, you know, aspects of your project that, like the idea of meeting with Greenfield and Squirrel Hill, and, you know, which are contiguous communities. I think that's good. But we could maybe we should, you know, identify possible collaboration aspects, or reach out to us, you know, for what you'd like us to do, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I try to put as many things as I can on our Facebook group and also on our website, so you can see what projects and what meetings that we have coming up. And if you're interested in coming and participating in those, you're more than welcome to do so. All of our events are public.
Great. Do we have any last thoughts?
Tiffany, I wanted to thank you. I thought it was an excellent presentation. And as we remember that our watershed and airsheds are really all common, I think it's a, you know, there's some fantastic opportunities. I also just had a question is, do you have a way that you're going about looking for undermined areas? Is there are there certain techniques or something that are used? Because I know in the eastern suburbs, we have similar issues that are creating acid mine drainage.
I honestly do not know the answer to that question. We are just beginning our work with the city on improving the Greenway. So I think that that's going to be a discussion that will be brought up in more depth at later meetings. But we have, you know, just initially brought up the idea that, you know, it might be a good idea to get some of that water tested. I think they're probably not going to want to spend the money in this fiscally tight time of the pandemic on something unless they feel there's a serious need. So right now, there's nothing that we're doing that requires engineers to verify anything. So I don't think any testing for undermining will happen until, you know, unless there's a big ask to have something dug or moved like that. It would be my guess, but it's definitely something to discuss in future meetings with city planning.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. I couldn't see the map, but so the idea of Hazelwood Greenway, that's a term that's used to describe the land that the steel mill is on. Is that right? I can't.
Can you see the?
No.
Can you see the slide now?
No.
No? Okay.
Other people can, but for some reason I can't. I don't know what it is. But anyway.
So Hazelwood Green is the site where the steel mill was.
Okay.
The Hazelwood, and that Hazelwood Green is on the river. So it's
right.
the flat area where the river is and the bike trail is. The Hazelwood Greenway is up on the hill.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's forested area on the hillside, very steep hillside. So a lot of it is not a good place to start building new developments. And I think there's interest from several, you know, residents to actually increase the size of the Greenway to include more of the vacant land that's around it that also they feel should not be developed any further. So that's a question as well, is, you know, is there a possibility to increase the size of the Greenway? And that's something that we're exploring with the city, how that could be done. If any of you read the paper, the Post-Gazette article about the hikes that we're doing in Hazelwood that came out last month. Oh, you did? Great. The area that we actually went with them was the site of the old housing authority, public housing. And so that is covered in woods as well. And that is not officially Greenway, but there is also interest among some residents to make that into Greenway. Not all residents, you know, again, that's a conversation has to be had. If you have something that's basically a nuisance for you, you might not want it to, you know, continue being trees if it's just a place where things are dumped. Or you feel like you have no grocery store, so you should put a grocery store where all the trees are, or a Walmart or something like that. So that's something that has to be discussed. But currently that old housing authority land is forest, and it's a very nice place to take a walk, and we enjoyed that walk up there, but it is not official Greenway. It overlooks the waterfront area and the Hayes Eagle's Nest, so it's kind of a nice view. It's up high. I don't know how long your meeting lasts, but do you need to have the breakout groups, or is everybody good with what we're doing?
Our meeting is until 8, so this was the tail end. I just want to share out that our next meeting, which is the first Monday of May, is on the VOP trail. And that's a trail that's meant to connect Verona, Oakmont, Penn Hills, and Plum. So it sounds very similar to the Greenway as a connector, like a corridor, but in our service area of the watershed. So yeah, if this was interesting, please come back. And we have lots of different ways to plug in. So feel free to reach out to me about the essay contest, about volunteering for reimagined food systems. Yeah.
I was just hoping that Irina Prokop-Penka and David Mueller could introduce themselves, because I don't know that they've attended before. So if they're willing to unmute themselves and introduce themselves, that would be awesome.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Irina. I'm not with any organization, but I'm a student at Pitt. I'm a political science major and Russian major, and I was just interested into seeing like what these meetings were about, because I've heard about them before, and I am thinking about how to get more involved, but I'm just kind of seeking out all the opportunities and all the organizations around Pittsburgh, and yeah.
Hi, I'm Dave Muller, and just interested in different land uses and things that are going on. I always try to keep track of things. I'm a real estate appraiser by profession. So when there's new initiatives or new organizations trying to put in bike lanes or walking trails that would make neighborhoods more livable, that interests me, and I try to stay up on those events.
Thanks so much, both of you, for being here.
Cool. Well, we're ending. But yeah, thanks everyone for being here. I'm gonna stick on, but official end to the meeting.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany.
And John,